the Light of Truth radio broadcast with Michael Boldea.
All right, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us. This is the Light of Truth radio broadcast. I am your host, Michael Boldea, and we are so close to being live, we might as well be. Had to record it just a couple hours early so I could go and have dinner with the family. But we're here. It is, September the 19th, 2019. Houston is getting hit with about 3 feet of rain, so please keep those in Houston in your prayers. Apparently Justin Trudeau is in trouble because he posed in blackface, and that's a no-no. But, you know, eventually the snake starts to eat itself. These people and their hypersensitivity, man, eventually they start to eat themselves. They can't help it. Today's going to be a somewhat special program, or at least different than what we're used to. A little later on, we're actually going to answer your questions. I know that sounds amazing. Gino has been collecting the questions that he's found on the YouTube clips, as well as ones that we've gotten in the email, and I will do my best to answer them to the best of my ability because we haven't done that, I think, ever. And I know some of you have questions, and some of them are legitimate questions. Some of them are questions to which I won't have an answer. And some of them I will likely have a humorous answer to. But before we get into all that, just in case you didn't believe that the global warming, climate change, global cooling nonsense isn't a religion unto itself. Well, NBC News finally jumped the shark. They went and done it. They're prompting Americans to confess their climate change transgressions as part of a project titled Climate Confessions. Yes, so now it's incumbent upon you to go and confess your climate change transgression. Did you use more than one toilet tissue square? Well, shame on you. You have transgressed. And I don't know what happens. I guess you have to go and super glue a cow's behind so it doesn't flatulate. That's going to be your penance. This is so ridiculous. I can't believe that society has gotten to this. I can't believe that this is what we call progress and growth. I've come to the conclusion that when people don't have existential problems, when they don't have to be concerned about what they're going to eat or how they're going to keep their house warm or where their next meal is coming from, they have to create problems for themselves, apparently. Because some of this stuff is just plain idiotic. There's no way around it. It's just foolishness on steroids. And, if natural selection had any say, a lot of these people wouldn't be above ground anymore because, let's face it, they'd be the first to go. But I'm going to get into this a little bit because you have to understand why the zealotry. You have to understand why these people are so committed to this cause, why they're willing to basically torpedo the world economy, go back to living in hovels and caves, cook their meat by sunlight, and never shower again. They're willing to do this because to them it is a religion. To them it is something beyond just a belief. It is a way of life. And they believe so much in this newfound religion that they're willing to rob you of your rights. They're willing to rob you of your choices. They're willing to rob you of everything and make you submit if you're unwilling to, because that's the way it ought to be, at least in their perception. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. Of course, normal people are having a heyday with this. Their confessions are less than credible or less than heartfelt, let's say. But it's just hilarious to go through this. I think we can all use a little levity. And after we get through this, in about the last half hour of the show, we're going to answer your questions and go from there. As Democrat presidential candidates, as well as prominent members of Congress, such as members of the far left squad, continue to push aggressive forms of the Green New Deal, NBC is paralleling their concerns by encouraging Americans to anonymously admit their climate change faux pas. Yes, you heard that correct. Even those who care deeply about the planet's future can slip up now and then, NBC's Climate Confessions reads. Tell us, where do you fall short in preventing climate change? Now, the first thing that we need to sort of establish is that these people think so highly of themselves that they believe they can actually prevent climate change. So if you use more than one toilet tissue square, you are hastening climate change. If you don't use any toilet tissue at all, apparently you are preventing climate change. Congratulations, you get a gold star. Do you blast the AC, throw out half your lunch, grill a steak every week? Oh my. Apparently these are the new sins. It's not pedophilia, it's not homosexuality, it's not perversion, it's not transgenderism, it's not any of these things anymore. These things are no longer sins. The new sin is grilling a steak every week. Do you grill a steak every week? Well, then you are a sinful creature on par with the most hedonistic pervert. Yes, you are. How dare you not prevent climate change by eating tofu and soy? Unbelievable. So, NBC News, of course, it's NBC News, because who else would it be? Continues and says, share your anonymous confessions with NBC News. Willing confessants can express their remorse in one of 6 categories. I'm trying not to laugh. I really am. If you saw my face, you'd start laughing. They can express their remorse. These people are the same people who have no remorse or compunction about killing a newly born baby. Because that's what post-birth abortion is. We talked about this last week. It broke my heart to talk about it. I couldn't sleep well that night because of the conversation we had regarding the comfort rooms in the Illinois hospital. So the same people that are perfectly fine with the murder of newborn babies, the same people that are advocating for the slaughter of innocents, are now asking if you would, please, express your remorse in one of 6 categories. Is your remorse plastics, meat, transportation, energy, or food waste? What are you most remorseful about? The fact that you have a car and drive it to work rather than walk the 18 miles? The fact that you use plastic bags rather than try to hug a few cereal boxes, a sausage, and a gallon of milk to your chest because I don't want to use a bag, it'll kill the climate. Is it perhaps energy? How dare you not sit in 120-degree weather with 100% humidity and just suffer through it? How dare you turn on your air conditioning? Maybe it's paper. We talked about the toilet tissue. Anything more than 1 square, you're killing the earth. Mother Earth is crying as she's slowly dying. Why? Why do you use more than 1 square of toilet tissue? Or perhaps it is food waste. So if that burger you ordered tastes a little funky, it matters not. Suck it up and eat it. If you get food poisoning later, it serves you right for eating a burger. I know you didn't grill the steak, but it used to be steak, and then it got ground up, and then it made into a burger patty, and someone else grilled it, and it's still killing the planet. So, serves you right. Next time, try tofu. Yummy, yummy for you. Now, people are actually going along with this. Some people are just having a heyday because, let's face it, this opens itself up to ridicule. It opens itself up to mockery. Willing confessants, we read that, some of the confessions appear to be genuine in nature, with many anonymous individuals expressing guilt for air travel and excessive Q-tip usage. This is what we've brought society to. People confessing excessive Q-tip usage while standing out in the street yelling, "My body, my right, kill everything in sight." Just as an aside, between murdering babies and using too many Q-tips, I think God will overlook one, but not so much the other. Just, my 2 cents. My sister had a lot of metal straws, but I thought they were annoying, so I threw them out, one user wrote under plastics. So it shows the level of intelligence that the people who read NBC News and who confess their climate sins have. This girl's talking about throwing away metal straws, even though, it was written under plastics. I travel often to conferences, flying. I think about the emissions. I try to justify it with the planes going there anyway, another user admitted. See, there are drawbacks to the lack of natural selection. This person is one of them. Come on, seriously? I have never once gotten on a plane and thought about the emissions. I'm done. I can't. This is ridiculous. Someone else confessed that they fly on private jets and often burn an extra 500 gallons of fuel to save 10 minutes. But hey, they're climate change advocates. Because see, the people that are spearheading this nonsense will never be affected by the policies they're trying to implement. No one's going to ask this person flying on a private jet willing to burn over an extra 500 gallons of fuel to save 10 minutes whether they cooked more than one steak last week. But I promise they'll come and ask you, how dare you? How can you not see the hunting planet? How dare you eat meat? I use enough Q-tips for a family of 8. I have an addiction to them in hygiene purposes, makeup application, even cleaning, another individual confessed. Oh, and here's another one. Again, no, I'm sorry. No, we're waiting for the nomads to come and just take us over. We are Rome right before the barbarians were at the gate. I love meat, but I love the earth more. Vegan for over 4 years now, another bragged. And then, of course, there were the honest people, the red-blooded people, the people that realized the utter insanity of this confessional. And so one of them wrote, I would rather the whole planet burn than give up steak. Oh, let me finish this. I would rather the whole planet burn than give up steak. Kick rocks, hippies. Confessions implies I have something to feel guilty about. I don't. I only conserve electricity to lower my power bill. And I run my AC 24/7. because I'm not going to sweat in order to appease this climate religion. Bravo. Another confessed, I require at least a half roll of TP when wiping. There you go. So this is what NBC has come up with. This is the new course of action. Just in case you didn't understand how zealous these people are regarding climate change. Where do we go from here? Nowhere good. We're having 10-year-old autistic girls lecture the U.S. Congress on climate change just because she rowed a boat across the ocean. How does that make her qualified to talk down to the rest of us plebs? It's man's grand opinion of himself. It's man thinking that if he stops eating beef, or if he stops riding a bus, or if he stops flying in an airplane, he's going to affect this great big spinning rock or the climate thereof. Let me let you in on a little secret. The U.S. can go back to living in caves, have not one car on the road. And if the Chinese and if the Indians and if all those other nations that are pumping just toxins into the atmosphere won't stop, it's not going to make a iota of difference. But see, it's not about changing the climate. It's about weakening this nation. When you get right down to it, when you start to understand the reason behind the reason, it starts to coalesce and it forms a picture. The people insisting that you give up your rights, the people insisting that you give up your car and your air conditioning and your steak, are doing so not because they love the planet. They're doing it because they love control. They love the idea of having a say in regard to absolutely every area of your life. And that's the goal. Control. To control you from waking to sleeping to even how long you sleep. Because you know what? You got to be productive. All those people on welfare aren't going to pay themselves. So get to work. Pay your taxes. Pay your fair share. Because if you don't pay your fair share, we'll know. And then what'll happen? You go to jail for not paying your fair share. But see, they're the ones that determine what fair share is. You have members of Congress that haven't paid their taxes in a dozen years. You have members of Congress that owe over $2.2 million in taxes. You have pompous blowhards like poverty pimp Al Sharpton, who owes so much money to the Fed in taxes, they've stopped just keeping track. But no, you're to blame. You're to blame for what ails society. You're to blame for what ails the world. It's you who needs to stop eating meat and enjoying the luxury of air conditioning. Because the earth is crying. Some autistic girl from Sweden told us so. And if we don't go along and self-destruct as a nation and self-destruct as an economy, then we're evil and mean. We need natural selection again. I'm sorry. It's the way it is. We need to go back to those medieval brutalist times where the strong survive. because this nonsense is getting out of hand. And you're going to end up with a generation of limp-wristed weaklings that don't want to do anything except sit in their mom's basement and talk about climate change and how everyone who still eats a burger from time to time is evil. But hey, kill the babies all the way, you know, women's rights and all that. So, here we are. It's not getting any better. And for some inexplicable reason, the church is still quiet about pretty much everything. It's as though we're on two different parallel train tracks. One headed in one direction, one headed in the other, and we can't understand what's happening. We can't understand where we're headed because we're not paying attention. We're too busy trying to run cover for, I don't know, people we have esteem for, I guess, or people who we thought were influencers when, you know, they do the most cowardly thing when they take their lives leaving two kids behind. I'm sorry. I'm not. Let's not even start, because it angered me. Because I've got at least 7 of you sent me this article, this email. Some youth pastor of a mega church killed himself, leaving 2 children and a wife behind. I'm sorry, that's selfish. And we need to stop with the he's in a better place nonsense, huh? Because in the least, when someone else fighting the same demons keeps hearing he's in a better place, it gives them license to follow suit. It gives them license to do the self-same thing. Well, if he's in a better place, I guess I'll be in a better place too. So stop trying to justify it. Stop trying to make it seem less horrible than it is. A father of 2 decided to abandon his wife and children permanently by ending his life. And we're still trying to shoehorn him into heaven because it's bad optics if we tell the truth. I know, I got sidetracked. It just made me angry. I'm sorry. No, you're a coward. If you've got kids and you do this, I don't care what you're battling. I've seen it all, I've heard it all, and then some. You're a coward. And there's no way I'm going to talk you into heaven. It's up to God in the end. But to say that it doesn't matter how you go out, well, it kind of does. Bible says so. It's not your life to take. It's that simple. It's not your life to take. Oh, brother, we can't be that harsh. Yeah, we should. We got here by not being harsh enough. We got here by turning a blind eye and being docile and we need to be tolerant and embracing and validating and understanding. Look where it's gotten us. NBC's putting up virtual confessionals about how you hurt Mother Earth. Nothing about how you regret murdering a baby or other atrocious things that men do every single day. But I said I would answer a few questions, and I want to keep my word, as it were. So I'm going to have Gino jump on the line. He will read the questions. I have not seen them before, or heard what they're about. So this ought to be interesting. Gino, you there?
I'm there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. All right. Shoot with the first question, please.
Well, this is from a YouTube video of the radio show. I don't know if God will keep any of us in this country from a horrible death for what goes on or what will go on in America. What do you think about that?
If God will keep us from a horrible death?
Yeah, meaning, when the judgment comes, the questioner is thinking they will be part of the horrible death coming over America.
Look, when there's a difference between persecution and the wrath of God. We've talked about this throughout the years. We're not spared persecution, but we are spared the wrath of God. No, we will not die as the godless. We will not die hopeless and afraid, chaotic and clinging to straws. It's the children of God will not die as the godless do. They have hope in Him. Now, all of us die. It's the fact of life. This whole idea of come to Jesus and you'll live forever. Yeah, after your flesh goes into the earth. So we're all going to die at some point. Death is not something we should fear. Now, it's not something we should look forward to either. We need to be balanced as individuals. I don't want to hasten my departure by a second. But I don't want to live hoping that I never see death either. Look, I'd love to watch my daughters grow. I'd love to watch them get married and see my grandkids. I'd love all these things. But the realist in me says, there isn't enough time for all that. So make every day count. Make every day precious. Enjoy them at this age, and then when they grow a little older. And when the hard times come, God will take care of His children. This is an undeniable reality that we see throughout the Scripture. I live with the blessed assurance that God will protect my family. I live with the blessed assurance that God will shelter us. That He will be the God that keeps us. He will be the one who will provide, contrary to men's expectation, contrary to what we see around us with the naked eye. God is able. So no, God will not punish you for someone else's sin. He will punish the nation, but He will protect His children. And so our duty as believers is to live righteousness, is to live holiness, is to pursue Him daily, is to be in His will, is to fellowship with Him. So that when we call out, He will say, "Here I am." So I hope I've answered that question. Next question, Gina.
Yeah, that was good. Very good. Yep. Of course, we know that in New York they passed an infanticide bill. And one of the questioners is asking, where are the pastor-led protests in New York? There's a lot of churches and Christians in that state. Why no pushback?
And that has been my question as well. Why is the church so silent on this topic? Look, I think that depending on what denomination you look at, especially the Catholic Church, especially in that area, they're fighting demons of their own. I think this whole pedophile priest just saga is nowhere near its end. And so I don't think the leadership of these churches want the spotlight put on them. I know that sounds it sounds cold and it sounds callous, but this is the only way I see it playing out. These leaders don't want the spotlight on them. They don't want the focus on them because they know they've got skeletons in their closet. And so they would rather sit by and not encourage their people and not do anything in order to stop this atrocity because they believe they'll be left alone. I think there's also Protestant churches that are, look, there's a lot of churches that have blood on their hands. There's a lot of churches that God will hold accountable. Because when you could have spoken out, when you could have said something, you chose not to. You watched as horror unfolded, and you didn't raise a finger. And I'm talking about leadership. Look, everything starts at the top. I guarantee you, if every pastor of every church in New York and New Jersey encouraged their followers, encouraged their parishioners, their members to meet on, the courthouse steps of the Capitol building, you'd better believe a few tens of thousands would show up. But, nobody wants to put themselves in the line of fire anymore. Nobody wants to take a stand. Nobody has the gumption to speak truth because, if we get our heads too high up, they're going to try to chop it off. Well, what are you sacrificing for the sake of your comfort? What are you sacrificing for the sake of being left alone by those of the world? That's the question we should ask. Because if we're sacrificing our integrity, and if we're sacrificing truth, and if we're sacrificing the word itself, then what point is there to us calling ourselves believers? What point is there to saying that we're the army of God? Just showing up on Sunday morning doesn't cut it. Look, eventually you're going to have to stand for something. I think that if this isn't a hill we're willing to die on, then pretty much nothing else is. Look, you've got homosexual transgenders doing story time in churches, playing tickle with the children. You've got convicted pedophiles who got angry because they were rejected from doing story time with children. Because how dare you judge us? This is where we've come to. And much of it has to do with the silence of the church. Much of it has to do with the fact that we choose silence because it's comfortable. So that was my answer to that question. Next one, Gino.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a sobering answer. It really is. It almost brings a tear to your eye that you made a powerful comment. We're not willing to fight for that hill. And you think about 58 million aborted babies, and now going to the infanticide laws that are going on. It's a very sober answer, but I totally agree. That goes on to the next question. How do I start a movement, Michael? I want to mention this in my church. I'm disgusted with this nation. I haven't watched TV in a year. It's depressing. My church will be praying for you and your ministry. God bless you and Gino. How do I start a movement? I think he's talking about getting something moving to stand up for God and, as you just said, fight for the faith.
Well, first of all, thank you for your prayers on behalf of the ministry and myself. Let me put it this way. Once you verbalize your intentions, you'll be surprised how many like-minded people gravitate towards you. So I would start with a prayer evening in church or in your home or somewhere. You find a designated place and say, every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. we're going to meet and we're going to pray against the spirit of darkness. We're going to pray against the spirit of abortion. And you'd be surprised how many people are looking to do something, but they don't know where to begin. Start small. Look, it takes one person to be bold enough to stand on the battlement and wave the flag. Once they do that, everyone who sees the flag will gravitate towards them. And that's the amazing thing about movements. They're organic. You can't plan it out. You can't say these are the 5 steps that you need in order for your movement to become nationwide. No, start small. Start with you, your family, friends, brothers in Christ. Start with prayer and saying, look, all right, this week we're going to write letters to our senators. Next week we're going to write letter to our congressmen. The reason that the godless are so effective is because they do all these things that we poo-poo. Well, that doesn't work, writing a letter to our senator. These people are doing it, and apparently they're making headway. And if the other side isn't making their voice heard, if the other side isn't doing anything, then these people conclude that, well, only this side, cares about their whatever it is. And so rather than have them pester us, we'll give in and do as they ask. Look, the church needs to become more vocal. I'm not saying be violent. I'm not saying be crass. I'm not saying be in your face, but be vocal. And whenever you have a discussion or a debate with somebody, be armed with knowledge. Be armed with facts. Be armed with the right argument. And when you have the facts, when you have the correct argument, then you push them in a corner and either they admit to certain realities or you win the debate. Either they because I've had people outright tell me, yes, I know it's murder and I don't care. Well, then we have nothing left to talk about. See, my battle isn't with those callous ghouls who already know they're killing a human being and doing it nevertheless. My hope is that I speak to somebody who still thinks that it's a clump of cells, that still thinks that it's an inanimate thing that can be, done away with in 5 minutes flat. Because even though we're living in an age where knowledge is abundant, there are a lot of ignorant people. Let me put it that way. That's a good way to put it. Even though we're living in an age where knowledge is abundant, there are a lot of ignorant people. And when you start telling people facts like you could hear the baby's heartbeat at 6 weeks, that the baby can feel pain inside the womb in the second trimester, when you start giving them facts about the reality of the horrors that are abortion and the abortion industry, if they did not possess knowledge of these things, I guarantee you it'll make them pause. And yes, you will have those people who say, I know it's murder, I don't care. And those people, you know what? I'm sorry, God judge you. God judge you without mercy. God judge you without grace. God judge you. Because if you know you're murdering a baby and you're going through with it anyway, then all that's left is fiery indignation. Anyway, Gino, next question.
The next question deals with Trump. He called himself the chosen one, but I know he was referring to himself becoming president. Do you believe God placed him in that position? That's the question, Mike.
Actually, I don't even think that's what he was referring to. He was referring to being the chosen one in fighting China's desire for, domination. Look, the word tells us that God appoints rulers and God cuts rulers down. I'm not one of those people that, how do I put it? Look, of all the choices that we had, and eventually of the two choices that we had, back in 2016, Trump was the only choice. If for nothing else, Hillary Clinton's stance on abortion. Now, since then, the man has surprised me, pleasantly surprised me, in many of the things that he has done. Perfect man, by no means. But if you still follow, I don't know, Jim Baker or Jimmy Swaggart and call them men of God, while sentencing a guy like Donald Trump to the, ninth sphere of hell because he's been married twice, I'm sorry, your hypocrisy is showing. Donald Trump's not your pastor. Donald Trump is the president of these United States. And between him and the alternative, I'd pick him any day. Did God place him there? I think that there's a strong case to be made for the fact that, yes, the hand of God was present, given all that stood against this man. Do you realize that there is no newspaper of record that gave this man a chance at winning the presidency in 2016. The New York Times had him at 99% to lose. They'd already printed magazines with Madam President for Hillary Clinton. And yet, somehow, he pulled it out of the bag. They mocked this man incessantly since the moment he announced. Even I was like, really? Because I never watched his TV shows before. I'm a busy guy. I don't do a lot of TV. I knew the name, of course, because, it's everywhere. But I'm like, really? President? This guy? But like I said, in the last 3 years, I've been pleasantly surprised. And yes, if you look at all the things that had to happen in order for him to become president, having the opposition that he had throughout it all, from both the Democrats, the Republicans, the news media, and everyone in between. Even if it's grudgingly, you have to admit there was something there beyond human capacity or capability. So that was my answer to that particular question. Gino, next question.
Well, here's an interesting one. This person believes the communist revolution has already begun in America. What do you believe as far as when this revolution will take place and what will precipitate it?
Well, it's if the communists, I think we're seeing foreshadowing of it. I don't think it's begun, because when it begins, it will be very violent and it will be very quick and it will be very chaotic. And it will encompass the nation. It will keep us so distracted and so busy with the inward fighting that nations we consider enemies will see their opportunity to strike. Understand that this won't be, a few people getting their heads bashed in Portland or Washington State or Seattle. This is going to be a nationwide thing. I think right now there are many things that could precipitate a violent uprising in this country. I even think that another term by Donald Trump might do it. Him, appointing another 2 Supreme Court justices will do it. These people are already just tattered as far as their nerves are concerned, because the media has been lying to them for 3 years. I mean, these people have been expecting that any morning Donald Trump will be, frog marched out of the White House in handcuffs because he colluded with the Russians, and somehow through some, strange machination, Hillary Clinton will be brought into the White House and made president. I mean, this is the lunacy that these people have swallowed, hook, line, and sinker. And with every victory that Donald Trump has, and he's been having some, let's face it, they call him Teflon Don, and I'm starting to believe it, because they've been throwing everything at this guy. I mean, they had to revert back to just foolishness because nothing stuck. Because, again, there was an attempted coup. And we should take that very seriously. People within government, people that we call, the swamp, there was an attempted coup to unseat a duly elected president. That's a big deal, and it's being whitewashed. See, it's amazing to me, all the stories that get top billing in the news cycle and all the stories that quickly die out. Remember a few weeks ago we talked about Jeffrey Epstein? Have you heard anything about that since he supposedly hung himself, wink, wink? Buried, gone. Because powerful people wanted it buried and gone. But we're going back to Justice, what's his name? With the accusations, which were already proven false. It's astounding to me how much the media propagandizes on behalf of a certain political party. It's astounding to me how easily men's attentions are swayed, and it doesn't take much. it's just, look, what distracted us from the major stories of 2 weeks ago? And I guarantee you, a week from now, there will be something else that's distracting us from the stories that we should kind of keep an eye on now, like Iran. Look, the Iranians are trying to pick a fight, and that should concern us. They're not bowing their head. They're not scraping. They're trying to pick a fight. And they're trying to pick a fight because they know that the Russians have their back. And I think that Donald Trump was wise in not rushing into war and not blowing them back to the Stone Age. And to me, every time the media encourages something is when we should take a step back and analyze and go, all right, why would you want this? Look, understand that these people are doing everything they can. They would, I guarantee you, they would happily have a war start with American lives lost if it meant that Donald Trump lost the next election. They would happily torpedo the U.S. economy, have it be nothing more than a shambles, if it meant that Donald Trump lost the next elections. This is how dangerous they deem this man to be. And that's another thing that we should look at and go, hey, why do they hate him so much? Why does the party of infanticide and pedophilia and all these wretched, ugly things hate Donald Trump so much? Just a thought. Dwell on it. We'll discuss next week. For now, Gino, next question, please.
Well, that leads to the question, should people move out of the country? And I guess it's a two-part question. Some are leaving now. Some will probably leave at the time of knowing trouble's coming. What's your take on that?
And go where? That's
yeah, that's it.
But see, that's my question. If you want to leave, where are you going to go? This is it. This is the last bastion of freedom on earth. Unless you can afford to buy an island out in the middle of nowhere and go live there by yourself, this is it. So there's nowhere to run to. When chaos ensues, when the hard times come, they won't be isolated to the U.S., they won't be isolated to North America. It'll be a worldwide thing. There's nowhere to run. So the only wise thing you can do is draw close to God and understand that He will be your provider. The only thing you can do is draw close to God and understand that it is in the times of hardship, it is in the times of difficulty, it is in the times of lack that God proves Himself to His children all the more. So, no, there's nowhere to run. I'm not planning on going anywhere. And I would have places to go. I could go back to Romania, but do what there? You think the Russians who are next door aren't going to just run roughshod right over the country when it comes time? Where are you going to go? That's the question. If God tells you to go, He won't just say go. He'll give you a destination. And if it's God telling you, then do what God tells you to do. But don't go on someone else's say-so. Don't go because someone else encouraged it. Don't go because someone else received revelation that they should go. Well, if you received revelation that you should go, Godspeed, pack a bag. But don't ask me to tag along. You know why? Because God may not have told me the same thing. God may want me to sit right where I am. So, in this case, what's good for the goose isn't necessarily good for the gander. What's good for your brother or your neighbor or your friend or your pastor or whoever else isn't necessarily good for you. This is why you need to form a relationship with God, know His voice, so that He will tell you personally where you must go, what you must do, how you must do it, and when you must do it. We can't bypass relationship and trust in someone else's secondhand information as in regards to where we're supposed to go during the last days. That's preposterous. We can't do that, because God's message won't be the same for everyone. The destination won't be the same for everyone. The timing won't be the same for everyone. So again, relationship. Know God. Know the voice of God. Know the will of God for your life. And when the time comes, God will either say go, but if he says nothing, then don't assume. That's an important lesson. And I think it's the lesson that I'm going to end on tonight. If God doesn't say anything, don't assume. Because a lot of people are looking left and looking right and seeing things progressing and seeing the noose tightening and seeing chaos ensuing. And God hasn't spoken to them. God hasn't told them to go. God hasn't told them to move. God hasn't even told them to pack a bag. And some people start to hyperventilate when God is silent. Some people don't know what to do with themselves when God is silent. And so they take it upon themselves to assume that they know better than God and make the decision that isn't theirs to make. Because if you decide of your own volition to go when God hasn't told you to go, you have no right to expect his protection where you're going. Do you follow? Does that make sense? You see, if God hasn't told you to go, yet you go anyway, you have no right to expect his protection where you're going. You have no right to expect his blessing where you're going, because you're off on your own. It's something that you decided. It's not something that God instructed you to do. So if God does not speak regarding your departure, regarding leaving, regarding moving, regarding anything, do what is required of us all to do, which is work while it's day, fight the good fight of faith, and grow deeper in God. That's your baseline. That is what is incumbent upon all of us to do. And then you wait patiently on the Lord. I know. What do you mean wait? Look at all that's happening. Well, wait patiently on the Lord. But what if he? Well, then you're not supposed to do anything. If he doesn't tell you to do anything, then you're not supposed to do anything in regards to packing and moving and driving cross country or whatever it is. Don't take it upon yourself to assume the mind of God. Don't take it upon yourself to conclude what God would do. And not only that, but conclude that maybe he's too busy to have told you, so you're just going to go and help him out and do it by yourself. No, live with the absolute knowledge that God is able to protect you. Live with the absolute knowledge that God is able to keep you. Live with the absolute knowledge that God is able to shelter you. And listen for his voice. I promise you, when the time comes, he will speak. And he will do so clearly. And he will do so decisively. And he will do so without any ambiguity. So hopefully I've answered some of your questions. I know that was not all of them, but that is about all that we had time for. I thank you all for joining us. Thank you for listening to this program. If you do have questions, just, you'll find a way to get to us. And we will perhaps do these more often when they accumulate. As always, thank you for your prayers. May God bless you. May God keep you. And if the Lord wills it, we will see each other next week, where I'm sure there will be something new to cover. Until then, Gino, it's all yours.
So, Thank you so much, Mike, for answering the questions. It leads me to the bill that is going on in California, ACR 99, a bill introduced by the Democratic State Assembly that is pretty much trying to force pastors to either embrace pro-LGBT ideology, not preach against it, not counsel against it. And I want to make a couple points about that. Lately, I'm a Christian musician and had the pleasure to travel with Mike for many years. And there's been a Baptist pastor and some Christian artists come out, and they're not sure homosexuality is a sin. This Baptist pastor in California is trying to encourage pastors to support this law. And, it leads me to the biblical mandate about betraying the faith. In the last days, in 2 Timothy 3, people will be traitors. And I want to encourage all of us, even if we got to take a jail cell, defend God's word over everything. Defend the things of God over threat of jail, threat of prison, threat of persecution. Our ministry is got people in it and have been in it, especially Dimitri Dudeman and his family, that suffered greatly for the cause of the Lord. And I want to encourage everyone who gets our radio show, our messages, please encourage people to always defend the faith and the Word of God over man's ideology. We have to defend truth. And so we want to thank you so much tonight for listening to the Light of Truth broadcast. May God bless you.
Thank you for listening to today's broadcast, The Light of Truth with Michael Boldea. If you would like to order a copy of today's broadcast, please visit our website at handofhelp.com. If you have questions about our ministry, you can email us at handofhelpoffice@aol.com or simply call us at 920-206-9910. God bless you.